After watching his squad surrender 184 points in their last 3 outings, Owl headman Homer Rice has brought in martial arts instructor Ted Gambordella to help rebuild the young Owls' confidence.
Well, we're trying to improve their mental attitude. We're trying to make them better, more aggressive players by making them less likely to be injured.
How did you come up with this program that you were, this training program that you were presenting to all these sports teams?
I wrote a book called The End of Injury back in 1975 because there's only 3 real ways that you can get injured in a sport. That's getting hit or contact. The second is falling down. And the third is overstretching. Those are the only 3 ways you get injured in a sport. Every one of those techniques has been used in the martial arts for years with no injuries. Judo players throw each other 7, 8 feet in the air. Aikido players too, they don't get hurt. You know, karate people, ballerinas, people that stretch all the time, they don't get pulled hamstrings and stuff. And in my particular style of karate and jiu-jitsu, we could take full power punches to anywhere on our body, from our groin to our throat to anywhere. In fact, I took it to an extreme where I was able to start bending knives on my neck. And so I decided I want to travel around and get endorsements for my book. And so I went to all the major big colleges. I went to Texas, Oklahoma, LSU, Rice, Houston Rockets, and New Orleans Jazz, Louisiana College, Oral Roberts University. And it was a strange thing because I used to just walk into the coach's office and say, can I talk? They always have a secretary. Can I talk to the coach? And here's a funny story. I walked into University of Texas office and can I talk to the coach? And there was a guy sitting there by the lady. He says, I'm the coach. I said, and your name? He said, you're trying to get an appointment to see me. You don't even know my name. We're the national champions. This is when Earl Campbell was on the team. So, but that's how brave. I said, yeah. I said, well, all I want to do is I have this program to prevent injuries, and I want to show you that it works. You just get your biggest players you have, and I want you to come punch me in the ribs and the stomach as hard as they can to show you that what I'm telling you is real. And so he did that. And Earl, when I went to Oklahoma with Barry Switzer, he had the Selman brothers. You ever heard of those guys? They're giants, monster guys. They hit me so hard they knocked me through the door. And he said, oh, this is great. He called another coach, hit me again. Oh, he called another coach, oh, hit me again. I said, Coach, this is great, but I didn't come here to just be a punching bag. I came here to work with your team and stuff. So then I went down to Houston. I worked with the Rice Owls, and then I also worked with the Houston Rockets. And a funny story about that is when I was working with the Houston Rockets, Moses Malone was on the team, and Rudy Tomjanovich, was on it. Now he's a big coach, a big deal. And Moses was a giant guy, giant guy. And he said to me, how do you do that? I said, it's just in your mind. He goes, oh, I understand. So that was my Moses. And when I worked with the New Orleans Jazz, which is not a Utah Jazz, with Pete Maravich. And the funny part about that was whenever I went there, Pete was late for the practice. And the coach said, Pete, you're late. That'll be a $5,000 fine. He says, I'm not paying it. He says, I know you're not paying it, Pete, but don't say that in front of the other players. He said,
were the athletes receptive once you, or did you need to prove yourself?
Well, none of them believed they could hit me. None of them believed they couldn't hurt me when they hit me. Because they're so big and so giant. They've always beat up everybody or been stronger and faster and tougher than anybody in the world. And I weighed about 165 pounds at that time. I was 30 years old. I didn't look like it, but I was 30 years old back then. And so they would just hit me as hard as they could. And what made them believers is that the knife I had, and actually this is the old knife I used to use. So it's a 10-inch butcher knife. And it's so sharp it'd go through your hand. And when I bend that, they would just all shut up because I actually developed a callus on my neck from bending the knife so much. And that protected me a lot because the knife kept getting sharper and sharper. And when I worked with the Olympic team one time. I went to Colorado, and I bent a knife, and one of the generals there or something says, let me see that knife. And he tried to bend it. He says, if anything you can do, I can do. I said, well, okay, coach, go right ahead. But I couldn't get an Olympic endorsement because they charge $100,000 if you want to be the Olympic underwear. So you can't get an endorsement for the Olympics. But I had a great time down in Houston, and I worked with them I worked with each team for a week because they had a 7-day program. I taught them stretching, how to fall and not get hurt. I taught them how to get hit and not get hurt. I taught them how to use mental preparation. Then I taught them a whole rounded system on how you can put all that together so they could teach it to their kids and implement it in their program. Because like I said, the martial arts has been proving this for years that you can do this and not get hurt. And they don't do it now. If you'll watch when football players fall down, 90% of them bounce their head off the ground, right? Well, the easiest way you don't bounce your head off the ground is when you fall, you tuck your chin. Then your head will not hit the ground. It's as simple as that. You will have no more concussions from someone bouncing their head off the hard mat or the hard football floor if you simply tuck your chin. So simple techniques like that. And almost 80% of the football players can't touch their toes. So they have no flexibility, but yet they wonder why they get injuries from hamstrings and stuff. Well, they don't ever do stretching. And most of the stretching they do is wrong. You'll see them lay down and put their leg back, the hurdler stretch, they call it. That's very bad on your knees. Now, if you're running hurdles, that's great. But you're not running hurdles. You're running a football or a basketball. And so that's not an effective or a clever stretch to do if you're doing that.
So this must be maddening for you to see the way things are done these days when you believe that you had a tried and true method to prevent all this stuff.
I agree. And I'll tell you why I got out of the business, because I was traveling all around. I went to Barry Switzer, and he said, this is really impressive. I really love it. He said, but let me tell you something. He said, we ain't going to use it. He said, the only person that really cares about this kid getting hurt is his mama and his friends. He says, if he's got to catch that ball and break his leg, he better catch it or he's off the team. So we're not going to spend any time teaching him how to prevent injuries if it's going to affect me winning football games. And I said, well, coach, he said, but I'll give you an endorsement. And, maybe some of them use it later in their life and stuff, but we only want to win. We don't care if we care if they get hurt, but 100% of my players are going to get hurt. And then another thing, I came to Dallas to work with the Cowboys, and SMU at that time had the Pony Express. Remember those guys when they got busted? They were the greatest, man. They made a touchdown every time they touched the ball, Dickerson and James.
Yep.
And Ron Myers, he not only told me that they wouldn't use it. I don't allow my players to get hurt. If they get hurt, I throw them off the team. Well, coach, it's an accident. If they get hurt, they tell you, well, we don't have injuries. So, okay, well, you can't argue with that logic. So, yeah, it was an interesting thing. You can't get more endorsements that I had and more proof that it worked, but it never sold because people just wouldn't. If I told you you could hit me in my stomach, the first thing you tell the next guy is, well, he didn't hit you hard enough. So the next guy wants to hit you in the stomach. Then the next guy, well, he didn't hit you right. I can hit you harder. But the next guy wants to hit you in the stomach. So I always used to solve that by saying, well, we'll just trade punches. And we'll start by trading punches in the throat. And so that shut them all up and it made it work good. But I had one of my best receptions was in Houston because I worked with two different teams down there. And I was working with Homer Rice, and he was going to bring me up to the Bengals when he turned pro and stuff, but that just didn't work out because it's a lot harder to get in with a professional team.
So how do you look back at that time then? Do you look at it as a triumph or a disappointment or somewhere in between?
I think it was a great experience for me, and I think it helped a lot of kids. And that book has been in print for 45 years now. That book I did those demonstrations and stuff 45 years ago, and it's still being read and stuff along with my other karate books and stuff. But I just wish people were doing more about it, because if you think about it, if you have children and they're playing sports and they don't know how to fall down and not get hurt, they're going to fall down and they're going to get hurt. If they don't understand stretching, if all they do is 2 minutes of calisthenics, they're going to pull a muscle. And if they get hit, there's tricks you can do so that you don't get hurt when you get hit. Now, the quarterback's the only ones that wear the rib protection. The running back stuff can't wear it. So you see them get hit real good. Now, the biggest problem I have, is with the concussions now, when they bounce their head off or stuff like that, that can be solved by not hitting your head on the ground and stuff. Now, when they run into each other, you can't, that's called key when you can get hit and not hurt. I can't do that. You can't let someone hit you in the head or the skull as hard as you can, because it's going to shake your brain. And that's what a concussion is, when you shake your brain.
So to the untrained eye, this looks really strange, this video from 1977, what you're doing with the players, but you're convinced that it's not strange at all.
No, it's been proven for over 2,000 years that this stuff works. If it didn't work, you'd only have one judo tournament every 4 or 5 years, because all the people would get hurt. right? If you couldn't train your body so you could get hit and not get hurt, you'd only do one boxing match or karate tournament in your life because you'd get hurt and you wouldn't be able to do it again till you healed up. And if you couldn't, if you didn't know how to stretch and do good flexibility, you'd only be doing flexibility things one time because you get hurt that way. And the other things that martial arts teaches, and I've taught the players a lot of us, they enjoyed, was the mind control, how to calm your mind and relax. And who could have used that? The Patriots this weekend, right? Who thought this is a good idea? Let's just throw the ball backwards. and it's a tie game. Let's just throw the ball backwards. So that's not keeping your mind calm. And a soldier and a karate person, we can't panic. You've got to stay calm or you're going to get hurt. And that was the whole reason I wrote this book, so you prevent injuries, help the children to prevent injuries.
And how many competitions in various disciplines have you won?
I'm a 10th degree black belt. I was United States champion and a bunch of other tournaments. But my biggest thing is I used to do the tournament scene. I used to do demonstrations in all the major karate tournaments because the karate guys know how to break bricks. They know how to punch. And yet they could hit me as hard as they could anywhere in my body, including the throat and the groin and all that, and I wouldn't get injured. And the thing is this, all these guys were better fighters than me. You had the world champions back then, Bill Wallace and Benny Yaquitas and stuff, but they couldn't do what I could do. I said, well, you can certainly beat me up in a fight, but if I hit you in the throat, you're going to fall down. And so I was able to, keep my own with all these people because they could not do what I did. You would think that it's the greatest thing in the world that you could show someone how to get hit and not get hurt. But if you want to have the smallest karate class in the world, our meeting is, say, well, we're doing a seminar next week. We're going to teach you how to get kicked in the groin or hit in the throat and punched in the ribs. No one's showing up for that because you're going to get hit in the groin, punched in the ribs, and hit in the throat. They're just not showing up. They're going, no, I'm not letting my kid go. What is he going to do? Well, they're going to hit me in the throat, Dad. And no, you're not going to that class. So it becomes sort of frustrating in that it works, but it's just too good to be true. Everybody says, well, I can hit you harder. I could do this. I could do that. Just one school to the other. And you would think that after I taught Barry Switzer and Fred Akers and Homer Rice and Dale Brown, I was there when Dale Brown was at the LSU, all that. He gave me a glowing recommendation, stuff that they would all tell everybody about it, and everybody wanted to use my program. They just think everybody's going to get hurt. You never see the basketball players doing any stretching during the 4 hours they're in the game. You don't see any football players doing any stretching. They do it beforehand. None of them can touch their head on the ground. You don't see any of them practice getting hit and stuff, yet they're always getting injured. They're always falling down. Almost every game you have someone bounce their head off the turf. That's a totally preventable thing that you can do. And you would not have that concussion injury from the bouncing your head off a piece of concrete anymore.
Do you believe that in-game stretching would solve a lot of problems as well?
I think they should stay
loose.
I'm
understanding you?
I think that they should stay loose. Especially when you're in, what was that game yesterday, 7 degrees? It's pretty hard not to pull a muscle if you're running in the 7 degrees. You must sit on the bench for 30 minutes, 15 minutes.
I see guys on the bikes occasionally.
Yeah, that's what they're trying to keep them warm and stuff. So the program is, people understand it now, but because there's not a big push on it, no one's really using it as much as they should be. But I was able to get in, like Homer Rice was just really excited about it. And he gave me a glowing recommendation. I was with the team an entire week because I didn't just teach this in one hour session. I was down in Houston with y'all for an entire week and working with professional basketball players who are making millions of dollars. They wanted to know how not to get hurt to keep their game extended. Basketball players always fall down. You see them guys bounce off that floor. That they should teach them a little bit about that. And these guys are huge, and they're coming down from the tile of the racket, bouncing off the floor.
Yeah, and guys now jump. The game is played. It's just the athleticism obviously is like we've never seen before. Everybody can do it. Whereas back in the 70s and 80s, there were a few guys, but now everybody can play above the rim for the most part.
Yeah, you look at Zion Williamson. He's continually hurt. Well, he could have been probably, who knows how good it could have been, but he's going to be hurt his whole life. He's just too big and he falls down. You know, you just can't jump 11 feet in the air when you weigh 320 pounds, you know, and not hurt yourself.
So what does Ted Gambordella do now at age 74 on a daily basis?
Well, I write books. What I'm doing now is I'm recognizing outstanding martial artists all around the world. And I have written 50 volumes. You see these books back here. And I think you saw this picture. This is can you see that on your camera phone? I have written 9 feet of books and videos, 170 titles. And I have recognized 5,000 individuals around the world. Now, that's impressive when you say that, but it also, I'm the only person that's ever seen all those pictures because I made a video where each picture is only on there for about 2 seconds. Well, that's 10,000 seconds. It would take you 4 hours to sit there and just watch a 2-second blurb of that person going by. But I'm recognizing people because I got tired of having everybody say that, you know, only Bill Wallace is the only one should be recognized, you know, or Chuck Norris is the only one should be recognized. If you are a 5th degree black belt or higher in the martial arts, you're 1 in 10,000. Because if there's a karate school within 5 miles of every person in America, and 90% of the people, the kids drop out, 90%, then those 90%, only 1% make it to black belt. And that 1% goes down to a 1/10% who become a 5th degree black belt. So that's what I've been doing in my last years is just trying to help recognize people that don't get the recognition that they deserve for all their hard work in the martial arts and stuff.